speaker does not need an introduction, but he's from New York. Please welcome Broadway Bill Lee.
Thank you. You guys, I really am overwhelmed here because back in the U.S., just get in there and do your show. But I'm really gratified by the fact that we all love the same thing and we all know how difficult it is to do our jobs well. I wondered, how in the hell did we get here? And what are we doing here? Well, the fact is, I found out yesterday exactly what we're doing here. You know, the last couple of days that I've noticed all of you, especially the speakers, the presenters, and everybody in the audience with your questions, is that this is truly a combination of art and science. But maybe more art, because the tools came to us scientifically, and we're using them. But it's really artistic as to how we use them and then stop using them, use them a little more and then not use them. I went to the Van Gogh Museum yesterday, and it blew me away when I found out that Van Gogh actually was part of a network of artists that would pass around sketches of their paintings, and other artists at the time would recreate the paintings the way they do them. That blew me away. I'm going, what? Was there no copyright infringement? Was there no problem with that? Apparently, that's how art is created. And then when I thought about it, after I left the Van Gogh Museum, I'm going, wow, that's how I do my job. I listened to the radio and I heard other disc jockeys doing it, and that's how I really learned to do it. And so it's really no different. Everyone in this room is an artist, and that's awesome. So that's why we're here. Then I remembered, okay, so I must be an artist. That's why we're here. And I have to tell you, the way I'm going to start this, because you guys are all younger than I am. I'm the oldest father in the room, okay? And how we got here is really important, because when I started listening to the radio in the mid-50s, imaging consisted of one of the announcers yelling real loud in reverb with a horn section stabbing them after every important thing they wanted to say. And that was it. That was imaging back when I started listening to the radio in the 50s. That didn't really change until the mid-1960s when Bill Drake started a format in the States, and it was crush and roll. It was just, I only want the disc jockey on the intro of that song, and that's it. Not the outro, not keep talking. If it's a 5-second intro, he gets to talk for 5 seconds, and that's it. And it better be good. And that's how the format started to evolve. The top 40 format really started to evolve in the States. And the only imaging outside of the jingles, KHJ Los Angeles, all of these kind of jingles, the only imaging was a timpani at the top of the hour. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the much more music station, KHJ Los Angeles. But it was simply a timpani and the voice of Bill Drake himself saying, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to, and that was it. That was the imaging. But it was a start. It was a start. By the 1970s, what happened, a couple of guys that worked for Bill Drake, Buzz Bennett and Jack McCoy, started their own consultancy, got their own group of radio stations, and for the first time, and this was 1974, 1975, they started a group of radio stations in the States called The Q. 13Q in Pittsburgh, KCBQ in San Diego, and a host of others all around the country. This was known as the Q format. And for the very first time, they started to do imaging. Imaging as we know it today. Imaging that sticks out brands and absolutely creates a special sound that's unique to that radio station. Not only in the processing, but in the production and the name and the game and the way it's played. Now I gotta tell you, I have always been a fan of this because this is my whole career is built on being a fan of this working inside a relationship like this. So what I want to do is I want to play you a parody. Jack McCoy was the production director and the voice of KCBQ in San Diego. And they did something unbelievably imaginative. They had all of their sponsors donate a product for airtime. So they created something called The Last Contest. And when The Last Contest debuted, it featured an automobile from a Chevrolet dealer. It featured a vacation to Rome from a travel agency. It featured no interest from a bank. It featured all sorts of fabulous gifts. And the winner would have a chance to choose any one of these gifts to continue on in the contest. It sounded unbelievable. There had never been anything on any radio station like this ever before. So this called for unimaginable imaging. It was imaging like no one had ever heard before, and it was totally antithetical to the way radio stations used to promote themselves before that. Before that, it was loud, and it's, hey, win yourself a pair of tickets to the next, whatever. This was in the early to mid-'70s, so everybody was stoned already. Everybody had figured out that that's not getting attention. We have to do something totally the opposite to get attention. So what I'm going to play for you here is Jack McCoy doing the Last Contest promo using all the imaging, only it's a parody of that. They make fun of themselves doing the most unbelievable contest in the world, and they take it to ridiculous extremes. But this, so for a couple of different reasons, this is going to be exactly the way it sounded at KCBQ, only totally ridiculous. This is Jack McCoy doing The Last Contest.
KCBQ, which throughout the years has shamelessly given away $17 million and 29 cents, prepares to make a startling confession. KCBQ, which has been ripped off by greedy contest players to the tune of 488 precision automobiles, 16 pocket battleships, and the Western Hemisphere, now admits it's just not enough. And so KCBQ, which in the past has brought you the first contest, the last contest, the contest following the last contest, and Radio Bingo, now announces the ultimate contest. As incredible as it may sound, KCBQ will now make it possible for some lucky listener to win God. It's simple to win. Sometime in the future, within an upcoming average quarter hour, KCBQ will reveal a secret phone number. We'll take the 1 millionth caller. If that's you, we'll ask you your name. If you can tell us your name within 30 seconds, you'll win God. If you can't tell us your name, KCBQ will give you clues. We'll allow you to bring in a qualified guest expert. We'll even let you refer to your wallet. And if you win, the Q Jocks will personally drive up to your home in our neat van and present God to you for a full year. Imagine the comments of your friends as you perform miracle after miracle all year long. Picture the surprised looks when you part the water in your neighbor's swimming pool. Imagine the money you'll win at the racetrack. Since God knows many of the results in advance. All this and more for you from the Q as we present the ultimate contest. In case of ties, duplicate prizes will be awarded.
Okay. Mike, thank you. The reason I wanted to start with this is because that's the first imaging that happened on radio in the U.S. That was where it started. I got news for you. That's where we're going again. And it's only because everything in life seems to be cyclical, but I've had this discussion with a few of you already. I'm preaching the gospel of less is more today. And that's because I've already heard that gospel from a few of you, a few of the presenters already here. And the fact is, it's getting tough when you try to realize not only how to process a sound of music for the radio, but the sound that fits your audience, How many program directors are going to come up to you sometime and say, that's just too much. That's too much. You're used to doing CHR. Back off. I came to tell you that that's happening in the U.S. right now as well, with every radio station. And it's a generational thing. So where you have a promo like The Last Contest, and the way it's delivered, actually mocking Rod Serling of The Twilight Zone, and it's down-tempo, it gets your attention because it's so much different than everything else we're hearing coming out of that box. It's getting your attention because the content is ridiculous. The content's over the top. It's nuts. It's nuts. It's crazy. So it's going to get your attention. So back in the 70s, guys like Joe McCoy and Buzz Bennett, who, by the way, 13Q was a screaming 13Q baby 105. And they would just be over the top with the DJ delivery and totally under the blanket with the promotional delivery. Yet the content of the promotional delivery was incredible. The Last Contest was incredible. This is even more incredible. And you had guys like this. That was what happened in the 1970s, and that's where we came from. That's where I came in. I got into radio in 1972. After listening to radio my whole life, this was finally when I got into it. But I got to tell you something, by the 1980s, I had a good 10 years in the business, maybe 15. Guys like Paul Frees, who had a voice like Orson Welles, very famous VO guy in the US and around the world, to be honest with you, would use this kind of delivery that we just heard that Jack McCoy used, only to extremes. This is where processing started to really come in. They would highlight lows and highs and use a voice like Paul Frees to create movie trailers. Basically, this guy did most of the movie trailers in a world, where everything is upside down. That kind of thing. He was the voice. That was the way the production sounded. But by the time I got to Hot 97 in New York, things were changing. At Hot 97 in New York in 1988, what happened was we had a new format. It incorporated Latin freestyle music. It incorporated a tiny bit of hip hop. And it was something new that we were incorporating that didn't have the name yet, but later grew up to be EDM. And in 1988, we were calling this dance music. New York's Hot 97, New York's Hot Mix. And that's what we were doing. Nobody knew exactly what to call it other than hot. And that's what it was. It was hot. And it was jumping out of the speakers. And the thing we used to do at Hot was stutter, use whatever digital tools we had available in 1988, which was the sampler. We all had samplers in 1988. We all had something called a sequencer, and they were usually built into the sampler. In 1988, that was state of the art. Just a few, Apple had a precursor to Pro Tools that was being used to digitally edit. But for all intents and purposes, we had to start learning what we could do with digital music. And it was coming out that all the music we were playing was digital. So we had to come out with imaging that was similarly digital. Rick Allen was our production director at Hot 97. And in 1988, he bought a revolutionary instrument called a synclavier. And this is being used in concert stages and behind stages everywhere now, because it not only samples, it resamples in long time with long loops. You can take sections of song, sample, and loop. And this was the kind of thing he was starting to use that made Hot 97 totally unique. Nobody was doing stuff like this. This became state-of-the-art imaging in 1988 at Hot 97. And it's just, oh boy. To me, this is probably the greatest thing that was on the radio. And you tell me if you've ever heard it before, you tell me if this doesn't knock your ass out.
From the top of the Empire State Building, 97.1 WQHT, New York. Hot 97.
Okay, So what that basically is, notice there's no music, there's no drums, there's nothing to get in the way because we would mix the beats under that. When I was at Hot 97, I would jock with the beat, I'd hit the ID with the beat, and it would stutter, and that is why EDM is happening today, because we started doing stuff like that in 1988. And that whole way of doing things revolutionized imaging, revolutionized the way radio does its job. Everybody started to want to use stuttering. Everybody started to want to put sampling. Sample everything they're doing in the promos, in the sweepers, and that's where it all started. Now, honestly, by the 90s, you had Dave Fox here last year, and Dave Fox became the best at what he does with imaging. At Z100, what Dave Fox did was give us high-pass filter, auto-tunes, people off the street being meshed in with all these different filters and all these different ways of hearing how to produce a promo. And that was awesome. And you want to know something? We've been doing that for 20 frickin' years. And everybody's tired of it. And so you'll notice, like, auto-tune was the first to go. Everybody said, you gotta stop. We're just done with it already. The high-pass filters are done. Rest in peace, high-pass filters. Some stations are still using them. And if your imaging director is still using them, just stop. Because it's been so overused, nobody's doing it anymore. And besides, there's another reason why nobody's using it anymore. Content is king. This is what I'm getting down to. Content is king. They want their attention grabbed. They want some audio that's really unique and entertaining, but they don't want it to override the message. So the message has to be there. If you're going to do a promo, if you're going to do a sweeper, if you're going to produce something of image, it better say something, and it better say something well before you give it the essence of God. Before you give it that kind of thing, you've got to give it the right content, which is where I come in. This is where I come in, because as a jock, it's been years since I've been a production director. And in all honesty, the last time I did it, we were just getting into the digital age. I had a sampler, I had a sequencer, and I used to even make music. But the thing is, most of my work was done in analog, and we used old-fashioned tape and, you know, a lot of phase distortion and all those things that we had at our disposal at the time. But jocking is something I always looked at as imaging. Every break that I do, I try to look at it a good 2 to 3 minutes before I do it and produce it in my head. How do I want this to sound? What am I going to need other than me and the record to make this work? So I have a bank of sound effects. I have an entire Vox Pro filled with phone calls and voices and even more sound effects if I want them. And I have to think about what thought do I need to convey. Is it going to be a promotional idea? Is it going to be an image idea? Is it going to be on what people are doing right now? Or am I just going to have fun and make some nonsense for people because all I've done is give them information all hour? Let's screw around now. Usually when you guys see the breaks that I do on social media, that's screwing around. I'm just having fun because I know you guys will understand, because you know I'm putting together voiceover, I'm putting together production, and I'm also putting together sound quality by the nature of how I surf my voice into the music. I learned that early on in my career. Buzz Bennett was a proficient teacher of this. The guy I learned from, Bill Paris, was also very good at what we call surfing the music. And I think Bruno's into this too. What I mean by surfing the music is I got somebody listening really loud to the radio in the car. It's their favorite song. They got it cranked up, and man, this is the best song. Yeah. Worst thing that can happen is for the disc jockey to come in and go, yeah, that was... Turn him off immediately. He just ruined my record. His voice is too loud. And that's why I believe You got to surf the music. You got to be in it. I don't want to win it. I want to be the same as the lead singer of the song. I don't want to be any louder than that guy. And I've always done my shows that way, and I think that's kept me, to a certain degree, successful from not alienating a lot of people who love the music. And you know why? I have just that much respect for the music, too. That's what I got into radio for. I love the music. Wanted to pick up chicks, but I loved the music. Loved it. And so the whole idea of not interfering with the music, but trying to be as good as the music. You know, I've heard so many presenters up here today and yesterday that talked about, wow, sometimes less is more. Holy smart. Let's back off on the filters, back off on the plugins, for God's sakes, let it breathe. And I've always loved compression. I've always loved expansion. I've always loved what it does to my lousy voice, that I don't really have much of a radio voice. But I've loved what great processing does for my voice. In fact, I was saying this morning, I didn't get the confidence to be a radio personality until I got a great pair of headphones. About the third year I was in radio, somebody gave me a pair of Koss Pro 4 AA's. And these things were the size of a battleship. They were like having two JBL speakers strapped on your head, and they had just a huge headband that I still have a permanent dent in my head. I swear, they must have weighed 5 pounds. But the thing of it is, they made my voice sound so good. I was so confident that I had the ability to go ahead and play around. Go ahead and feel comfortable. Go ahead and enjoy what you're doing. Don't just read. Don't just do that. Don't just do this. Go ahead and have fun with this. You love the music. Let's get into the music. So for once in my life, I did what I've always wanted to do. I took creative license. And everybody that presented at this conference the last 2 days has taken license. They've gone ahead and taken risks. They've gone ahead and taken the license to say, I know how this is going to sound great. I know how to do this. And that comes only from confidence. But something's got to be there to spark that confidence. You got to have a big win. You got to find something that makes you win. And honestly, what I've always done on the air, the crash and roll, some of the best stuff I've ever learned has been from other disc jockeys and other imaging producers. Rick Allen, as I mentioned before at Hot 97, was a big influence on me because he would come in and watch me do my show, and he would listen to my levels, and I'd come in and watch him putting together a stuttering sample of something that sounded just outrageous. And we had a symbiosis going where we understood that we could not only work together but feed off each other. And some of the best radio stations in the world do that. Any radio station in the world that hasn't got that symbiosis going on isn't going to have a consistent sound. One thing I learned in programming, I started out actually as a program director, was that the best radio stations have to be consistent but unpredictable. And so I put that as a core of what I do. I want to be consistent. In other words, consistently good, consistently playing hit music, consistently giving them what they tune in and expect to hear, but unexpected. They don't know what I'm going to talk about. They don't know what is going to come up. Once in a while, I'll play a song that they haven't heard in 20 years. That makes it unpredictable. And unpredictability is what keeps freshness in anything. In music, in a radio station. So I'm going to give you a couple examples here. Sometimes I don't need any help. I just want to jock.
SFM is Broadway. Okay, so you told a little fib, and you're sorry that you did, but she can tell you're keeping something hid, so she fires back. Hey, we're gonna have a kid! You see how one thing leads to another? It's the Fix on 101.1. The deception!
First off, there's not a disc jockey on this planet isn't going to sound great on that intro. That was my first choice. Second, I love this song and I think about what this song means, and it takes me about 30 seconds to come up with a pack of lies. that actually makes sense, and then in about another 30 seconds, I can make that rhyme because, well, that's what I do. That's what I can do. Everybody's got something they do well. That's what I do well. You know why? Because I was in a lot of rock bands. I listened to a lot of rock and roll music. It's basically lyrics. Everything I do is lyrical. And the reason it's lyrical is because I can get it in and out of there quick. That's an 11-second intro. And everything I said in those 11 seconds kind of built a story real quick. But I was just joking. It had nothing to do with whether anybody understood what I was saying or not. I didn't care. It's like a rock and roll song. Doesn't matter what he's saying. When we were talking earlier about, Vessel was talking about doing a cassette remix. The Rolling Stones traditionally cut all their music on cassette and are still doing that. I think they did that with their latest album. Because it didn't matter how clear it was. It didn't matter how much understanding came from the lyrics. And I'm not saying I'm like that, but I am saying is sometimes the overall feeling speaks louder than the music or the song. And that's what happens to me when I'm on the radio. It's almost otherworldly. I will find a way to launch into a song and I can make it come together quickly. And the only reason I can make it come together quickly is because I've been doing it for 48 years. And I've been playing the same damn songs for the last 30 years. So I know every intro, okay? Everybody says, how can you do that without a script? Well, I kind of know it's just, 11-second intro. I introed it about 100 times over my lifetime, so I kind of know that part. I kind of know what the song's about because I've been listening to it for the last 30 years. So how do I make it say this? It depends on how I'm feeling that day, but I can come up with a fresh intro for that, usually once a week. And it is interesting to people who don't do that, but it's incredible to people who do that. You guys. And that's why I'm so gratified, because to me, it's just what I do. To me, it's just what I know how to do. And that's, it's fun. And you guys have fun accomplishing sound. We all accomplish sound and have fun doing it. And we can't forget that that's what we got to keep doing, even though we got jobs that are changing, bosses that are, more demanding. All of this is happening at the same time, but if we're not having fun, God knows this business doesn't pay enough. Everybody knows there's hard times and good times, hard times and good times. But let me give you another example of the kind of stuff that I do. Let me get rid of you. That actually, the way production is going, the way imaging is going, the way everything is going, whether it's television, radio, podcast, broadcast, flycast, it doesn't matter. It's starting to de-emphasize gimmicks, and it's starting to overemphasize content. Content is getting to be king. What I've been fortunate enough to prove with these video air checks that I keep putting out is that video is changing everything. But it's nothing without the audio, and I'm going to tell you why. Facebook Live came out, and all the disc jockeys started saying, let's Facebook Live this. This is a funny bit. Let's Facebook Live this. And you know what? It was okay, and once in a while it'd be all right. But for the kind of stuff I do, I intro music. And when I see disc jockeys trying to Facebook Live intro on music, I go, where's the audio? Where's the audio? Fortunately, at CBS FM, I have engineers that built us a monitor that sounds like air. So it's got processing, a little DAP from the 80s, I think. But at least it's processing so that I can get an accurate voice-to-music mix. I get accurate idea of where the levels are really going out on the air. Because in HD radio, we have in the States, everything is an 8-second delay because it takes time to build that up. So we have to be on an 8-second delay. But I do have audio from my engineers that make it sound to me and to the people looking at these, the people watching these, that it's actually happening in real time, and the audio sounds just like what's coming out of the radio.
CBS-FM, Broadway Bill Lee, just here to make a shot, shaking hyperventilating. It was on this date in 1928, Friedrich Schmeidel attempted rocket mail delivery in Austria. Unfortunately, he was unsuccessful. This guy must have been the Wile E. Coyote of the postal world.
Okay, so basically what I'm doing there is having fun. I took a piece of content that I had, which is, you know, it came out on a sheet, says, you know, what happened on this day, what happened on this day. Oh, this guy died or this guy tried rocket mail with post office delivery, you know. I thought, this is pretty stupid. How stupid can I make this sound? Can I make it sound just as stupid as the idea is? So I had a guy falling down a cliff. It made me think of the Roadrunner cartoons that used to be big. And I had a Roadrunner sound effect. So in effect, what I wound up doing here is taking a record intro, moving to the beat, and at the same time painting that picture. Painting the picture. I don't know about you guys, but while I was doing this break, I was watching the cartoon. I was watching the cartoon of Wile E. Coyote falling down a cliff going, and the Roadrunner taking off. And the ability to do that is to let the music speak, use two separate sound effects, and don't let them interfere with the song. Neither of those sound effects interfered with the music whatsoever. I got them both in and told the story in 16 friggin' seconds. That's unbelievable, even for me. and the whole idea of being able to do that is just word economy. I use word economy and just the words I need to paint the picture. So it sounds like it's a complicated mental thing, but it really is rhyming. It goes right along with rhyming. So I can do that. I can paint a picture. I can, I can sing along with the music, which is another technique I use. When I said before that I wanted to surf the music, when I was saying that I wanted to be no louder than the song, and I wanted to be like the lead singer of the song, I took the poetic license. And I do that a lot. But only when I'm feeling it, and only when it adds to the music. So we get that when I'm singing along with the records.
Oh Wow Wednesday.
Oh, wow.
On CBS FM.
It's Broadway raising my voice. How many radio stations nowadays let the DJs make the choice? And out of all my itty-bitty-mighties, this is my favorite band of the 90s. Third, living that semi-charm kind of life. Playing Asbury Park tomorrow night.
You can tell I like the song. You can tell I really like that song. And the thing of it is, nobody's got the balls to do this. I'm the only one I know. And the only reason I actually do that is because I love the record. I am not going to interfere with this song. I'm not going to do anything that I wouldn't do if that band was on this stage with me right here. I would intro that song the exact same way if they were standing right here. I'm not trying to overshadow their music. I'm actually loving their music. And when I published this one on Instagram, the lead singer of Third Eye Blind commented and said, "That's great. Please, when we come to New York, come up and introduce us." That, to me, is the highest form of gratitude. The highest form of gratitude. One time, I introduced a record by the Kinks, and I have loved them since I was 12 years old. I have idolized them. And I did a break about All Day and All the Night, and I just said something about how every kid who ever owned an electric guitar wanted it to sound like this. Dave Davies, who played that electric guitar for the Kinks, sent me a message back, invited me to his show at City Winery in New York. When these things happen, I realize that I'm doing my job the way I'm supposed to be doing it. If the makers of the music appreciate the job that I'm doing introducing and selling their music, because that's really what we do in radio, is sell the music, sell the products, sell the station, sell ourselves. And the only way I can do that effectively is to become part of it. And I think so many presenters are discouraged from becoming part of their product nowadays that they really look at this like otherworldly. Yet from where I came from in the 1970s, there were a lot of us doing this. There were a lot of disc jockeys becoming part of the music because they had to go under the same formatic guidelines I had to go under. They had to get it done on the intro of the record, and they'd get in trouble if they went past that. They'd get in trouble if they said something that was too blue humor. They'd get in trouble, not really in trouble, but they wouldn't keep their jobs if they were boring. So we were all under those guidelines, and we all had to walk that tightrope of being just entertaining enough, but not scary entertaining. And so that's the kind of thing I learned how to do. And from, everybody else has gone on, everybody else I came up with in radio has gone on to different aspects of the industry. They've all gone on to different careers, management positions, programming positions, CEOs. I never wanted to do anything but this. This is all I ever wanted to do. And I suppose one of the reasons I'm here today is because I never stopped doing it. I never stopped trying to perfect it. I never stopped trying to understand exactly how to do it and how to teach it and how to make it happen. And when I say how to teach it, that's the reason I started publishing these breaks on social media. And what I love the most is seeing people from around the world send me back comments because they've never heard anything like this before. Because certainly in a lot of European countries, this is like maniacal to a lot of program directors. They think you are out of your mind if you try to sound like this. Yet at one point in time, this moved American rock and roll music. At one point in time, this kind of introduction moved forward the industry that caused the imaging that made us all sit right here where we're sitting now. And we find that imaging directors from all over the world want to find out, what did they do in America? What did these guys use? What the hell piece of technology is this that I can make that sound that way? And that, to be honest with you, is the attraction that we have for each other. We all have this attraction because we have ears. We have good ears. And we know what moves us. We know what moves other people. It's sound. And that sound is what I just love about imaging. And it's also what I love about jockeying. So, let's see. I'm going to paint a picture here. I'm going to just paint this. Uh-oh. Where did it go?
Greatest collection of rock and roll stars.
It's a Rocktober weekend on CBS FM.
If you've just immigrated to the United States, I'm Broadway Bill Lee here to welcome you on your arrival. But around here on Fridays, we get a little primal. When you step off the boat, just scream! Very good. It sounds the same in English.
So, all I used there was the song itself. I'm looking at this record by Zeppelin and I go, what in God's name can I do with this intro? And I know what the song's about. It's about immigrants, so there's my plot. It's got the screaming in it every 4 seconds. What am I going to do with that? I just find a way to weave in and out of it. And what comes out is about 10 seconds of something that you're either going to love or hate. I wish this guy would shut up over my favorite Zeppelin song. Or, wow, I've never really thought of that song that way before. And this guy's out of his mind. I may have to listen to the next song he plays. Whole thing about it is it gets a reaction. The whole thing about it is it's more than just reading a card. It's more than just being a presenter. What it is becoming part of the music. And part of the music means now the content. Here again, all the imaging that we produce, all the presenting that we do as disc jockeys on the air, It's wonderful, but if it stays separate from the main product that people tune in to get, if they're tuning into your radio station to get music, if they're tuning into your podcast to get very narrowcast information tailored for them, if they're tuning in to get something very specific, you got to be part of that specificity. And for me, this is the best way to be part of that specific product that my radio station gives, and that's hit music. And it's just a way that I've learned how to do it, and it's just a way that I've seen how you people are fluidly moving through what's happening with imaging and what trends are happening and what this generation coming up is expecting out of us, out of their radios, and it's content. It's content. We've been hearing this for a few years now, that content is king. And I'm here to tell you, it has hit radio in the US. Content is king. Yes, it's got to be presented well, but yes, it's got to be allowed to say, to breathe, to be understood. It's got to be allowed in all our imaging. It's got to be allowed in all our disc jocking. It's got to be allowed in everything that we present, because that's what they want. They're tired of being oversold. They're tired of having too much mass media. You know, the biggest problems millennials have nowadays is too much technology, too much mass media, too much social media. That is, according to all surveys they've taken, that is their biggest headache. That gives them migraines. That gives them depression. So what they're looking for is relief. And they're telling us what's going to give them relief. And the relief is a little fewer plugins. The relief is a lot less talking on the radio. Can you get it done in 11 seconds? All right, Broadway, go nuts. Knock yourself out. But don't talk through the whole record. And don't talk every record. I mean, these are things that we've started to understand and implement, and it's only going to become more so. So we all have to understand and live with that, learn with that, but we got to keep having fun with that. We just got to keep having fun. You know, Beth, my wife, who, please give her a round of applause. She got me here, she keeps me here, and she'll get me home, and that's wonderful. The thing is, we both noticed on the first day that there's very few women, and we were kind of wondering, well, gosh, how do women get encouraged to slave away in front of a computer program all day? You know, back when I used to be a production director, we used to have migraine headaches from rewind. We'd hear tape rewind, and if you were in a production studio for 8 hours, you'd come walking out of there and have a serious mental problem. And it's still that way to many, you know, especially when you have to get up, walk away from something you've worked too long on. Any piece of production you work too long on, you have to get up and do that. But why aren't there more women in our industry? Well, I mean, there's lots of women disc jockeys. There's lots of women who are news presenters. There's lots of women doing those things. But how come not imaging? I wonder about that. I think it's because we haven't encouraged them at a younger level. I can tell you one thing. My daughters are far more proficient digitally and electronically than I ever was at their age, and certainly still am. They have the abilities, they have the tools, and they have the love of music. I just think we as an industry should probably do a little more to encourage women to do this, because there's going to be another aspect. Anytime we have more inclusivity into anything we do, we get better. We always get better when we have more inclusivity, and I think that's just important for us to do. And honestly, I think we got enough time to take questions till 5 o'clock. Is that right? Is that okay? So I left a lot out. I left a lot out on how do I accomplish this technically. Everything you saw me do on these breaks, I left a lot of room for questions. How do I do it? Go ahead.
How's it going, Bill? Big fan. Pleasure to meet you and watch you talk.
Thanks.
Quick one for you. Do you practice your breaks before you go live, or is it just like first time, first go?
There are occasions when I can do a first time, first go. And I'll be honest enough to tell you, when I was 30 and I was on KFRC, I could turn around after talking to somebody and put my headphones on, open the mic, see the intro time, and go for it. I used to be able to do that. I can't do that anymore. But it takes me, usually what I try to do now when I do my show, and I do my show well, is produce every break I'm going to do. I want to know if I'm going to need any sound effects. I want to know if I'm going to need a piece of a phone call. I want to know if I'm going to be able to sing with this or hit with this or do whatever I'm going to do with this. That takes about 5 minutes. So when I see a song I want to really play with, something that I don't have to give a promotional announcement for, something I don't have to plug something else about, something I don't have to give away something in a contest, those are normal rhymes I do. When those things come up, I'm just able to look at the copy and rhyme it quick. But when I actually see a break that I can turn something into, usually about 5 minutes before, I'll take a look at it, and then about 2 minutes before, I'll actually put the song in cue and in my head, hear what I'm going to say in my head. So it's about a 5-minute process with one rehearsal in my mind. Yeah.
Other questions?
Yes, sir. Don't you guys like my board technique? And I tight as hell?
You obviously love that Third Eye Blind song.
Yes.
Aside from that, what's your favourite intro of all time to do?
Oh,
There
gosh.
must be one.
You know what? Different intros for different moods and different occasions. The Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose, it's Too Late to Turn Back Now from 1973. It's too late to turn back now. I believe I'm falling in love. You can't sound bad on that intro. It's about 15 seconds long, and anything you say, the way the song is produced, it just floods and flushes up around your voice, and you just sound awesome.
Can you do it live?
If you have the song, I do it.
Okay, we fired it up, guys. What's the name of the song?
Too Late to Turn Back Now.
Too late to turn back now. Let's go.
I love it. Play with me. I think I just got set up. I think there's a good chance you guys just set me up. It's pretty old.
And Bill, after that, can you please share some stories about artists that you have had
Sure.
in the studio,
Yeah.
like Cher, Stevie Wonder?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, hit me. Make it loud. Okay, I'd be fired already. CBS FM, Broadway Bill, Devil May Care, personality on the air, doing it with Blair and Savoir Faire. Gotta share what everybody knows. Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. You think it's too late to turn back now? Wait till we get over my house about midnight.
Wow.
And I didn't even kiss the vocal. I could have been better than that. That was
But how about Stevie Wonder?
Stevie Wonder was awesome. I found out on a Tuesday that Stevie Wonder was going to come by when I was at Hot 97 in New York. And I said, well, what does he want me to do? Does he want me to plug his new album, or is there a charity he wants me to talk about? He goes, no, he wants to come in and hang out. I said, you got to be kidding me. And he said, no, as a matter of fact, Rick has his synclavier keyboard. He's bringing in your studio, and he's going to put Stevie on the other side of your console with the synclavier. And if he wants to play some music, if you want to let him, he can. And I went, you gotta be kidding me. So, for a good, Beth and my lion, a good hour, Stevie came in and I said, you know something? I love Superstition, but living for the city, Stevie. And then he just starts playing it on the clavicle. You know, and I'm just standing there and he's going for it. And then I said, you got any harmonicas with you? Any harps? He goes, yeah, what do you want, C or G? I go, give me a G. And so I took his harmonica and we started playing together. We're playing together on my show. And I knew we had a good 20-minute music suite. So I said, the heck with it. Well, I just threw caution to the wind, and we did about 3 or 4 songs, and we talked, and then went into the break, and then I let him introduce a couple of songs. But it was the most magical hour I've ever had on the radio. It was almost like a video special. It was just awesome. Oh, yeah. Okay. Hot 97. Broadway Bill with my liquid lips rubbing. Good heavens. It was on a night in 1989. Stevie Wonder showed up. He had a keyboard. He was hitting all the notes in line. I was feeling pretty fine. He threw me his harp, and I said, oh, baby, this is just sharp.
Okay, Bill, take me back to 2001, 9/11. You were in the studio. What happened with you?
Honestly, I was at home, and a friend of mine called and said, turn on the TV real quick. Turned on the TV just as the second plane was hitting the tower. And I knew I had one thing to do. Beth knew she had one thing to do, and that was gather the kids. I knew I had one thing to do, and that was hop in the Jeep and headed to the radio station. And it was pretty difficult because roadblocks were going up. The only thing I had was my press pass to get by police roadblock barriers. And so I got to the radio station, it was in Jersey, directly across from the World Trade Center site. And so by the time I got there, we watched it coming down, the second one coming down. And when I tell you, there were people on the sidewalks kneeling down, crying and praying. It was pretty moving when I was walking into the radio station, seeing that. And every other radio station was off the air. They turned their transmitters off because they knew it wasn't going to make a difference. Everybody's going to be watching television, and there was nothing they could do. There was no format they could put on. There was nothing that could happen. I think there were 2 news stations on, and we were still on because we were rebroadcasting a television station, and we were taking phone calls. So I zipped up to the radio station. I said, you guys, there's got to be something I could do. They go, yeah. So I would go live for 20 minutes, and then we'd run television for 20 minutes for 7, 8 hours, I think, Beth? It was like 7 or 8 hours from about 10 a.m. on. And the phone calls were just like you'd imagine. I've got my kids in daycare on Staten Island, and I'm in Jersey at work, and they won't let me back over the bridge to pick up my kids at daycare because they sealed off every entrance into New York. Every entrance into New York was sealed off. And women crying about things like that, and another woman crying because her husband's a fireman, and he just left the house, and he's headed for the World Trade Center site. Also, people would call up about their family members, wanting to know if their family members were safe because they work on high floors in the World Trade Center. All day I'm taking these calls. All day I'm putting them on the air because this is what real radio is all about. And it's not that I'm trying to get ratings, it's just that I want people to hear how we can serve them, and we can serve them best. So that's what we wound up doing all day long, and obviously it's unforgettable for me. And I have to tell you something else. It's still quite unforgettable to just about everybody who lives in that tri-state area. A lot of the United States is recovering now. A lot of, you'll see on 9/11 that, people will tip their hat and say, yeah, God bless these people, and then move on with their day. But in New York, it's still a stop-dead moment for an occasion all day long. And it's even difficult to be on the air this last September 11th. I don't want to do a regular show on September 11th. I don't want it to just go by and act like nothing's happening. One of the reasons I do such a high-powered, high-energy, totally irrelevant from serious politics or serious news is because it's my job to distract people. My prime directive, what they want to accomplish at CBS FM, is music that's a distraction from the real world, the news cycle, and people who are positive and encouraging. And that's what I do. I'm a positive, encouraging, perhaps a little nutty distraction to the news cycle. So that's how that happened.
Thank you. I have one more to end on a high note.
Yes.
A positive note. Why did you name yourself Broadway Bill Lee?
Okay, I didn't name myself that. It's interesting because our radio station, Hot 97, was moving from the Kaufman Astoria studios, where many of the television shows and radio shows and motion pictures are all produced over in Queens. And we decided to move to Broadway, change the frequency, and on the day we did that, we put up a big fake switch in Times Square. And we had Vanna White, who is on an American television show called Wheel of Fortune. She turns the letters on, for vowels, and she's been doing this job for 35 years on television, and it just won't die. Anyway, Vanna White is a good-looking blonde woman, and so we hired Vanna White to come be the personal celebrity to help me move the radio station from Queens to Manhattan. And we're just about ready to throw the switch, and Vanna says, well, we're going to have to start calling you Broadway Bill Lee. And I said, you know what? You're right. I'm going to stick with it. So that happened on air, live, and anybody who was listening that day heard me call myself Broadway for the first time.
Ladies and gentlemen, Broadway Bill Lee.
Dancing like nobody was watching.
Why are we looking at you?
I don't know. I got it. You got Mr. Lee lean clean on the scene. And we're probably supposed to start the first announcement for Imaging Days 2019.
Oh, that's right. That was what I was supposed to do now. Shit. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Sometimes I just need a little kick in the butt for a reminder. You did it, Bill. Thank you. You're a god. Are you ready? The waiting is over. The original. The original returns. Get ready. Here comes the treble. 3, 2, 1. The introduction. Here is Jonathan.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this was the Imaging Days 2019. Please, a warm round of applause for all the speakers. Nick Carcases, Idris Ruchichi, Guido Springer, James Lawson, Jeff Berlin, Oliver Vergili, Wessel O'Teaton, Sven van Dommel and Elena Thielen, Max Spandini and Broadway Bill Lee, and of course, all the participating partners, of course, the sponsors, and of course, this organization. A loud applause for the organization, please. Yes. Okay, listen up. We are going to send you all the information you need through your email within the next few weeks to come, and of course, all the links to